Hi there, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our soundbite is listening beyond the soundbites. And today joining me in studio is Gerald Malloy, who is a candidate for the U.S. Senate for Vermont. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I am so excited to have you. I have been encouraged by many people who have heard you that I must have you on the show. So
Well, thank
here you are. And
it's an exciting time to be, well, thank you for having me on. We just had the primary, and I'm excited about the U.S. Senate race that's going on right now. And I think it's time for change in Vermont. A lot of changes, I hope.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll chat about that. Because I will get to the questions, and I want you to tell people a little bit about your background. But I was thinking about all the things that have happened, because you ran
22.
22.
Yep.
Since then, I mean, the list of terrible things that have happened, it's just unbelievable. And the more I kept writing this list, I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
And I want to just talk about that. But first, could you tell us, please, about your background, business, military? Sure. Everything you've done.
Sure.
We only have an hour, though.
Okay, so I'll make it quick. The real quick version is 40 years of work experience out of high school, public high school. Went to West Point. I'm very fortunate to be able to go there. Played hockey and baseball. Great experience. Learned about duty, honor, and country, and about leadership. 22 years in the Army. I think kind of the big takeaways there, particularly now, I've actually been part of foreign policy that produces peace. And we don't have that now. Right. So I've served in Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Persian Gulf, been boots on the ground, and been part of a peace through strength, and that produced peace in those areas and while I was serving. So in along the line, I mentioned leadership. I think I learned at West Point duty, honor, and country, and the leadership piece about how to take an organization and move it towards a common goal and get results. So I think that's kind of the things really that I've done over the 40 years. Retired in 2006, worked actually about 5 years across for Department of Defense across DHS and HHS and the law enforcement community. Very interesting. I worked in many presidential disaster declarations, including some right here in Vermont. Then I went over to industry. I guess backing up a little bit, I got an MBA out of Temple University. Oh, great. And then actually during the pandemic, I went back. So I'm a little bit more than halfway through a master's program in Georgetown University. So I have a graduate certificate in data analytics. But jumping over to business, been in business development positions for about the last 16 years. And that's engaging customers. We talked about this a little bit, mostly the military, leading a big effort to put together a proposal, big technical piece, pricing piece, in a very competitive environment to provide services, mostly for the Army, mostly in the greater D.C. area. So I've been doing that for many years now, been successful at it. I enjoy it. I still consider it serving because I engage military folks all the time. And like I said, it's very competitive, but rewarding. Most important part, married, happily. My wife Stacy and I had our 25th yesterday.
Nice, good for you.
Yeah, I got married a little late in life. So we have 4 children. One just graduated college in May. I have 2 in college, and my youngest boy, he's in high school. Nice. So and that's family. We live down in Windsor County in Weathersfield, right kind of near Ascutney.
Yep, beautiful down there.
Beautiful, and I love Vermont. And ran in 22 and running again now. That's
great. So why Vermont? Because you've been here, a couple of years?
Oh, 4. Okay. Yeah, so born in Boston.
Did you know it beforehand? I mean, did you used to travel, visit here? Or have any connections?
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, I was born in Dorchester, in Boston, Boston suburbs, grew up around, and been coming up to Vermont most of my life, since a little boy, snowmobiling, skiing, playing hockey, work. I was actually the XO for the ROTC brigade that was in charge of New England. So we had Norwich and UVM, Middlebury, some other satellite schools. So I've been coming up here my whole life, almost my whole life, and decided early on in the pandemic to move back. My wife's also from Massachusetts, and we wanted to get back to New England, and she found an old lodge from 1910, which is, it's labor of love, but it's nice. I love it. Yeah, it's nothing fancy, but it's The view's great.
It's a Vermont lodge. How
It
can it
is,
be
yeah,
bad?
yeah.
That's great.
And I got the wildlife, and I got a little beaver pond, and
Nice.
so I love it up here. And then actually, what happened? I was sitting at my desk, so I work down in the D.C. area once or twice a month,
Yeah.
most of the time up in Vermont. And I saw Senator Leahy retired, and I was like, And I thought about it, and I was
Yeah.
like, and then I did some more research. I was like, I think I'm going to run.
Right.
So I decided to run. I could tell you more about that, but that was a great experience. Yeah.
Any surprises when you were around Vermont about, we all have preconceived notions a little bit. They always say that every county is different.
Sure.
And I know some are, but I haven't been to every part of Vermont. Have you any surprises out there? Other than, I'm sure the people were fabulous no matter where you
People
were.
are fabulous.
Yeah.
They are fabulous, and I'm talking the whole spectrum of people. They're fabulous. So surprises. Well, the beauty never stops,
Well, that's
and
true.
I call it 5 seasons with the mud season.
Yeah.
The first. Well, I'll tell you a little surprise. We moved up here in the summer of 20, and I was down in D.C. for business, I think, in December, and my wife called me and said, "We've made a terrible mistake." I was like, "What's the matter?" She's
Whoa.
like, "There's 5 feet of snow."
Oh, welcome to Vermont.
Oh, I know.
Right.
Well, we're used to
Yeah,
snow,
yeah.
Boston area, but it got plowed out, and she was fine. She called me back a couple hours, like, "Oh, we're going to be okay." But no, I've been all around Vermont. I actually think that's kind of why I won the primary back in 22, because I went to every nook and cranny just
Its
about.
name recognition is an issue for
Yeah,
sure.
and I got out there. I think I did like 21 parades, and just a whole lot of events, which was great. So I met people, and I will say it's not overrated that a Vermonter will help you if you're on the side of the road. I
Yep.
mean, I see that.
They
I've done
will.
it myself, and
Yep.
that's nice. I started making my own maple syrup. It's better than I thought. I mean, it's just I
Oh,
love
what
it.
fun. I've
love
actually
doing it.
always wanted to do that.
Oh, you should.
I know it's a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. When you can
it
say
is.
this is from
Yeah,
here,
you
my house.
Yeah, so I've enjoyed that. There's some other things I still want to do. I live near the Black River. I want to get
beautiful.
into fishing a little bit, which I'm not a fisherman, but I want to do that.
Great.
And I've seen some bears in my yard.
Oh, yeah, we have one of those too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. So, no, it's
it's great.
better than I thought.
great.
Actually, I love it here. I mean, I really do.
Excellent. Yeah, I do. I've been here since 1990, and my husband was born here, so he's an actual Vermonter.
You're right.
I'm a pretend Vermonter, but I love
I'm
it.
up to 12th generation Vermonters that I've met.
Were you born here?
No, as I say, that's what I'm saying. I was born in Boston.
Oh,
so
okay, back 12.
Yeah, but I've met folks that
Yeah.
are 12th
Wow.
generation
Oh,
Vermonters.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
I see.
pretty neat.
We'll always be Flatlanders. That's it. So although somebody was trying, last year or the year before last in the legislature, they were actually trying to change the definition of Vermonter, because people like us who have been here and love it, we chose it.
Right.
And I've been in politics, and so I fight hard for what I think is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And why can't we say we're Vermonters? But nope.
Well,
He didn't get very
I'm going to
far.
say it. I'm a Vermonter because I love Vermont. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to do the best thing for Vermont. And I got asked stuff like that early on in 22. And
Yeah.
I can tell you one of the things. I dated a young lady that went to UVM in
There you go.
early 80s. So I came up here, and that was right when Bernie became mayor.
And we meet again.
Yeah.
So, and Bernie is going to be running against you,
Right.
be your opponent. And are there any debates scheduled? Or?
I hope so.
Yeah, you've got to, for sure.
Senator Sanders, I want to debate you.
Yep.
Hopefully a couple of times, maybe 3, maybe 4.
Yep.
I did 4 against Peter Welch in 22. And so I'm looking forward to that. I think the public deserves that.
Yep.
And none scheduled at this point, though.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll remind him from time to time, because he's up here a lot. He's around. So, well, we'll find him.
I think he should be up here a lot more. But
Oh, well,
that's
yeah.
just me.
Peter is, I must say to Peter, he's in every parade and everything, and he has somebody that goes along with him that takes pictures. So I have all these pictures of me and Peter
Oh, yeah.
at the different parades in Northfield and
Yep.
wherever else.
I got to know
Which is
Senator
kind of a
Welch.
cool thing to do.
Yeah, I saw him. We had 4 debates.
Right.
I saw him a lot, got to know him pretty well. I just saw him, well, actually about a year ago. He came to the Coolidge 100th anniversary of Coolidge taking
sure.
office. So they had a gala at the Coolidge place in Plymouth, and so he was there. Got to see him again. That was nice.
That's good. I got to know him in the legislature when I was in the
Oh, right.
legislature. We got to be sort of good buds. He knows we don't vote the same, but but it's
right.
Vermont, and so we like each other, and that's it. Anyway, so you know what you're facing with this going around to Vermont, and they really do want you to be in where they are, and it's pretty hard to get around. A lot of work to do.
Yes. But, it's, 350,000 voters, 600-something thousand folks, 14 counties. I've been to the ball many times.
Right.
They are all a little bit different. They're all beautiful, and people are, for the great majority, pretty darn nice just to talk to.
Right.
I meet some folks that aren't so nice sometimes.
Well, we all are that sort of the way. Anyway, as I told you before, I've got this, it's a paragraph about this thick. And I run through this list very quickly, but I was getting scared myself writing this, going, how did we get here? And that's what I want to ask you. In just a few years, here's the list: 2 wars overseas as we speak. We have an open border, which we all know about that, and with fentanyl and gang members and all of the things that we hear in the news. An alliance that was forged between Iran, China, and Russia. That's something to be a little worried about. The anti-Semitism in all of our colleges, and we just had, is it Columbia? She just stepped down, gone. And housing shortage, and that's everywhere. Workforce shortage, cost of living, climate resiliency, energy costs, high crime rate, an out-of-control debt ceiling, and a failing education. What is left? How did we get here?
We're not in a good spot.
No,
Vermont is not, and the country is not.
No.
And I certainly hope folks realize, frankly, we've been led to this state.
Yeah.
And we have a supermajority here
Right.
in Vermont. I actually say we have a supermajority representing Vermonters in
sure.
the congressional delegation.
For
We have socialists and 2 far-left progressives, frankly. We're not in a good place,
No,
and the governor talks about it too. I talk about it all the time. We've become unaffordable, unsafe, and there's I call it an exodus. People are leaving. I'm sure I meet people almost every day that talk about I'm leaving or I'm this close to leaving. So a lot of bad things. I think if you really want to go back, I actually wrote an article for Vermont Daily Chronicle not too long ago, and I actually, because 2 years ago I was talking with someone and they mentioned a Playboy article, believe me, about taking over Vermont. And
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Playboy?
Yeah, an article.
All right. Oh, I know Playboy.
Well, yeah. So it was 1972, and before that was an article called Jamestown 70, and the whole idea was, 50 states. Look at a state that could kind of taken over by folks that really wanted to develop new ideas and test them all over the country. Right. And so the guy took that idea and put it on Vermont and said, hey, we could maybe do this in Vermont. And that's kind of what happened. And so, like I said, born in Boston, I've been coming up in my whole life. So going back to Senator Leahy, 1974, he was the only Democrat senator ever.
Right. Oh, we were pretty Republican way back in the day.
100 years straight,
Yeah.
nothing but. So I watched Vermont go like this, and we're right here now with the supermajority, and that's why I hope folks see that. I think kind of combining that, the Democrat Party. Frankly, I think it's been taken over by the progressive left.
Right.
And it's it's about an agenda versus new good ideas. So it's kind of lost that whole idea has kind of lost its bearings. And I look for Vermonters to see that, and I think right now, the 14% property tax, the child care tax. I mean, I met a young guy. He told me he's got to make $50,000 to pay for child care for his 3 young kids.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So folks are leaving, and I think, I hope Vermonters realize that, we've been led to this place, and you talked about the two wars, and I talked about, foreign policy that
Right.
produces peace. Well, and I talked about in 22, running, if we're enabling, however, it is through different policies of funding Iran, that's funding a terrorist organization, October 7th is what we got out of that.
Yeah, and many of them are denying that ever took place. I just shake my head.
Right, and then, going back, for me, one of the, the way we withdrew from Afghanistan, and frankly, I blame the commander-in-chief on that. I had classmates who were there on the ground.
We lost quite a few soldiers that day.
Well, it's funny you should mention this. So the day I decided I was absolutely going to run was March 1st of 22, when I watched that evening, when I watched the State of the Union address from President Biden, and I listened closely to what he was saying, and I said, we are about to go down a irreversible bad path. And the thing that really bothered me, he didn't mention the 13 service members.
No, he said nobody's lost their life under his.
Well, that was the recent debate.
Was that? Oh, because I know he said that, and I was home. My husband heard me upstairs yelling.
Right. So in his actually his last debate, when he said that, and I was surprised, President Trump didn't call him out on that. But but going back in that State of the Union, he should have said something to recognize those 13 service members that died on his watch during that debacle. And I do think that signaled to Russia, we're not going to do anything.
They're not paying attention.
Go ahead and attack Ukraine, which is terrible. So now we have the two new wars. You mentioned the debt. It's coming up on $36 trillion.
Yep.
Let's say 2021. So now, it's gone up from 22 million to 36 million.
Yep.
That's and we're going to pay $900 billion just to cover the interest next year.
Yes, right. I don't think people understand that.
Right. So genuinely our economy is threatened. My opponent talks about existential threat. That's it.
Yep. It's in our face.
It could collapse our economy. It's absolutely threatening. Vermont's an older community, so Social Security is not getting any better. And now with this, the debt's not helping that at all. So we need some discipline in Washington.
Yeah,
we don't have it.
The choices that you'll be, when you get to the Senate, the choices that will be there for us in November are just so diametrically opposed between Kamala Harris and President Trump.
Right.
It's just so, and people have this thing about Trump that you better start looking at the policies rather than perhaps the man himself, if that's what's bothering them.
Right.
But
I would encourage folks to do that. It's he's a New York businessman, and
I always say, you know what I say, because I lived in New York and in the 60s, and I said, he is a typical New York 60s guy. Yeah. He just never left it. Yeah. Because the kind of guy he is, I have seen those folks in New York and been out with them in their company.
Sure.
It's just sort of
who they are. You're right, and it's not. It should not be about a personality. Nope. It should be about policies. Right. And one of the things I say is, go back to 2019, and objectively, were you better off?
Right.
I think universally, I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
So, I hope folks look at that. I do wish, the president would kind of tone it down a little bit and focus on policies more. Yep. But they're different, and I meet Vermonters every day. I might be upwards of maybe 50,000 Vermonters I've met in the last 2.5 years, and I know most Vermonters are not a big fan. I think it's largely because of personalities, and, but I hope they make a choice for the future of the country, because the other choice there is not a good choice.
Scary, very scary.
Not a good choice at all.
Yeah, I think with your military background, when you're looking at what's happening about the two wars, but also about the condition of our military, I'm very involved with the USS Vermont, which is a nuclear submarine named after Vermont, and they're right now in Pearl Harbor. But when you read about the Navy and the condition of the Navy, it's smaller, weaker, and apparently China now has one of the biggest navies in the world, and here we are.
Yes, the Navy. I think they were in the Montpelier parade.
Oh gosh, yes, yes.
I think
And
they were.
before that, it was the USS Montpelier. So we've had two submarines named after us.
One of those two was in the Montpelier parade.
Yes, it was the USS Vermont.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I met the one of the
great.
senior officers.
Yep.
Very nice. But yes, so the Navy does need to be modernized. I think the Army is. I could just tell you, I went to high school with a 4-star that's on active duty in West Point, and another West Point I was in combat with, 4-star. So that's Europe and Asia. I've met the new Army Chief of Staff. I think the Army's going in the right direction now.
Good.
I think there was maybe a period there where we weren't focused on the right things in the Army.
Yes.
Not
There was
100%.
the word woke was bandied around about the Army, which is a little disturbing.
Right, yeah. So, but I think the Army's,
Good.
but the Navy, I am concerned about the condition of the fleet, so to speak, and, China. One of the things I talked about is having, getting back to critical technology independence, energy independence, food independence. That kind of relates back to China and Taiwan.
Right.
We're, for 50, 60 years now, we've been offshoring businesses.
Yep.
And I want to bring them back to the United States. I want to bring them back to Vermont. I think I'll tell you did a little bit of research when my opponent became a senator. The person that lost to him in his concession speech, Durant.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right.
Yeah,
he said
right.
Vermont. Businesses aren't going to come to Vermont. Well, you have a socialist senator.
Right.
And I think he was largely right.
Yeah.
And I will add to that. I actually don't think there's anybody that's walked in more businesses than me in the last 2.5 years, because I've taken top 20 population centers and I've spent full days, 10 hours, many.
Right.
And if a door's open, I'll walk in and talk to the business owner or whoever's there. And it's kind of the same thing. Leave me alone. I'm getting too much, over-regulation, too much cost burden. You're driving me out of business, and I'm thinking about closing up or leaving. Either one. So I look to work with the governor, make Vermont more business friendly.
Great.
And I've talked about a semiconductor energy tech hub, Greater Burlington, to develop energy solutions, because there's a lot of work to do still there. And that's another way to keep young Vermonters here.
And good-paying jobs.
Good-paying jobs, right?
Right.
Good-paying jobs. A Vermonter child, goes to school here, goes to UVM, and then he or she stays. Doesn't stay here for a year hanging around Burlington, and then say, I got to go to Florida or Texas or somewhere else for a job. So that's part of the solution to the exodus issue I was talking about.
Yeah, when I was a commissioner of labor, and we tried to work really hard with the colleges here. Who are you? What are your kids taking? What courses? And trying to use that as a way of attracting people to come in, because we've got a workforce that will be graduating in your field, and we'd like them to stay. And there's a lot that can be done. But they haven't quite figured that out yet. Every year we do a new workforce development bill, and it doesn't quite seem to get right at the issue.
Right. Well, and I can tell you, I've visited a whole lot of schools, and I meet young people, and I know all ages. Vermont has concerns about the climate and energy and emissions, and I want to take that concern and put it into developing solutions, technology fields to develop reliable, safe, affordable solutions in those fields.
Excellent. We've got a couple of service-related business here, GM.
Oh, sure.
And we've got
Beta Technologies?
yeah, yes, exactly. And the eyeglass place was
I'm not sure of that. I'm trying to think.
Brian Doobie's, Michael Doobie.
Oh, okay.
Has its glasses that are just for the military.
Oh.
And I can't remember the name. It's fabulous. I interviewed Michael about a year or so ago, and it was just very exciting. and I'll get you the name. That's a really great place. And Michael was our adjutant general.
Yes, I've met him.
Isn't he great? I love him. But I don't think he's in with that company now. But he started it, and so
Nice.
we've got a hook right here. And of course, we've got the F-35s, which are, thank God, we've got those.
Yes.
You know, that was a big deal here.
Sound of freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I have helicopters over my house. Is it Tuesday? They train. I swear to you, if appropriately dressed, I run outside every time and wave, and I do something, you know. And I know sometimes they see me because they'll do something.
Yeah.
I get so, you know, love mom country apple pie stuff, and I love it.
Well, yeah, we have actually pretty robust aircraft parts industry here.
Yeah.
I go to church down in Ludlow, and after church, some lady said she worked for, I want to say it was GE in Rutland.
Ah, right.
And 50 years ago, they developed some brand new, very important innovation, right there.
Yeah.
For might have been a Lockheed Martin helicopter. I'm not sure, but
oh, great.
yeah, Sikorsky.
That's good.
Yeah.
What was that great helicopter that goes like this? And
well, they have like the Harrier, the plane that's...
No, there's a helicopter that goes up straight and does it. When I was in the legislature, they took 12 of us on this helicopter. Everybody knows the name, and I just go in blank. But they gave us a PowerPoint to how to behave, and there was the word decapitation. You never saw 12 legislators stand in line and not do a blessed thing unless they were told. That word got to us all. We all kind of went, whoa, Black Hawk.
Black.
If they would have taken me at 50, I would have signed up. It was the most amazing thing ever. It was huge and very heavy. You didn't even know you were being lifted up. It's so big. It was incredible. But decapitation, I went, nope. There we go. So you... I've seen a little bit of Bernie Sanders. He's running this as his fourth term.
Correct.
Fourth term, and I read some of his things, and he's focusing on democracy, which I wanted to talk to you about. That seems to be the new buzzword of fear, is we're going to lose our democracy, and they might have a point there. And he's on health care and housing and debt relief for students, which is another whole discussion. But those were the things he seems to once again be running on. And but given the list I just read before that, I think he's missing a few things.
Well, so that's going back to we've been led here. The economy's not doing well. We had 40-year high inflation. Okay, that was self-inflicted.
Yep.
And that's, this isn't just Democrats, but I mean, because
we were there too, right?
We've got some overspending. Late Trump administration into COVID, overspending. It's gone kind of through the roof since. But that mass, and then dumping money, increasing the money supply and putting it into the economy was going to lead to inflation. It's kind of like Economics 101 from Milton Friedman, but. Which is another story, because Milton Friedman taught economics at the University of Chicago when Bernie was there.
Oh, get out.
Yeah. But
Not paying attention.
Right. Well, so there was, I don't know how we didn't, our government didn't see the inflation coming, but we had it. We had 40-year high inflation. It's still with us. I go grocery shopping. It's painful. So what you're not seeing in, the democracy, healthcare, housing, and debt relief is discussion of how's the economy doing. It's horrible. And people are struggling. And my opponent, I'm not a big online media guy, but his Twitter thing says the struggle continues.
Right.
Well, it does continue. And I'm hoping Vermonters realize there's a lot of false promises there. And it's been a long time. And, when someone says, I have a solution for this and this and this, it's not a solution. Right. It's words, and it's not working. We don't have free healthcare, or free housing, or free education. They've all gone up.
Yep.
And so it's actually failure. So I'm looking to make progress in those areas. I'm not going to promise free. I think Vermont, we tried universal health care about 10 years ago.
Just too small.
It
The numbers weren't there.
And the thing that's always gets left out, universal health care or single payer health care is the 30% tax increase that everyone's going to get because of that.
Right. Oh,
You know, everyone.
buck up.
Now the debt relief thing, that bothers me. That, you know, we have a constitution, and Congress is in charge of spending money.
Right.
President shouldn't be saying, I'm going to spend $800 billion or $500 billion and pay, you know, have you and me pay that person's debt. I think it sends a bad message to our younger people, and it's not actually, you know, constitutionally it's not right, and that's why it's still on the court system. So, is that healthcare? You know, my opponent's the chair of the health committee.
Yeah.
And, you know, you watch over the years berating certain, you know, healthcare industry, pharmaceutical industry, and that's it. That's all you see. You see the berating, you know, publicly in a committee hearing, but then, you know, drug prices, you know, 22 to 23, they went up 15% on average. They did. That's fact.
Right.
So, you know, there's one or two drugs they pick out, maybe they went down a little bit, but overall drug prices have gone up. Healthcare costs continue to go up. Vermont has a, you know, they're getting kind of out of control in Vermont. So I have some, you know, ideas in terms of increasing competition, transparency. I've actually thought about taking a good hard look at the FDA. I don't know if their operations are causing costs to go to increase. I've thought about taking a look at patents. You know, drug patents.
Interesting. Yes. Right.
Not sure. You know, I mean, if it's a 10-year patent, maybe it's a 5-year patent. That way, you get generic drugs out on the street 5 years earlier, so you're not paying $26,000 for this drug anymore. You know, because it's competition. Now you're paying, you know, much less. So, I think those areas that you mentioned from my opponent are you know, not addressing the real issues facing Vermonters, pocketbook issues,
Exactly.
Foreign policy issues, that, you know, the debt, the national debt, $36 trillion, like we talked about. You know, the housing, Vermont's got some work to do on its own there. I mean, Act 250 needs to be seriously revised. And the one last piece, going back to the raising the interest rate. So the, whatever it is, does, you know, 10, stepping up the interest rates at the federal level. So, that has taken mortgages from 3% to 7.5%.
Right.
So now, you know, that American dream is that much
reach.
further away for a young person that wanted to buy that house. They can't buy that house
And
anymore.
meanwhile, of course, they're trying to solve that. But a lot of my friends, not my friends, but people that I know much younger than I, are still messing with their college debt, and then they're trying to buy a house, and they just can't. So they're at mom's.
It's it's a lot of challenges out there. And then I would say, you know, one of the things that really bothers me is the division, how, you know, I actually spoke at the RNC about our motto being freedom and unity, and we've got a unity problem in this country. I don't like it.
Everybody is so angry. And I don't know when it started, it's just here. And you cannot say, they won't listen. So if you've got, and I always have a pretty good argument about why I support this or don't support that, but they won't listen. They just shut you right off.
Well, there is a lot of that. Fortunately, I mean, there's, you know, there is some of that. But I think there's still a lot of people in the middle.
I hope so.
That I think hopefully are listening. I think I'm a good listener. I listen to people. You know, I'll hear both sides, and that's why I'll work in the Senate. But well, frankly, I think my opponent is one of those kind of non-listeners. He's kind of stuck on an existential climate crisis, and kind of goes from there. And you know, the talk about free this, free that, free the next thing. It's not happening, and it's been 34 years now. I mean, I just saw a clip of my opponent as mayor, and
Bernie.
If you watch it, it's the same thing. The worker, healthcare.
He hasn't. He's stuck with the same.
The
same topics all of this time. No flip flopping.
Well, but the thing is,
it's
another thing is, I've worked for 40 years, like work. And you know, I think it's important to have some street cred there. If you're going to talk about the working class and the worker, maybe you should have worked a little bit.
Right.
And the other thing that kind of bothers me, it does bother me, you look at the news today with John Deere and Stellantis.
Oh,
and,
right.
I just met some John Deere folks at one of the county fairs or something, and they felt bad. But what's happened here in the United States, we have unions. We have the teachers' union, we have the United Auto Workers Union, all sorts of Teamsters. Fine. The idea of a union,
Right.
better wages, better working environment.
How can you argue that?
There's
right?
there's nothing wrong with it. But when you get into much more than that, particularly with teachers, I think, and curriculum and things like that, and you get senior members of the Senate and the president going to a picket line and pushing for instance, the United Auto Workers. See what the result of that is.
Right.
Now, Stellantis just said they're laying off 2,500 people.
Right.
So. There's got to be a better meet in the middle there because I mean, either you got your giant raise for a few months, but now you don't have a job.
Right, and now what? Yeah, no insurance and blah, blah.
Right.
Wow.
So, yeah.
There's just too much here. And I just even thought of something when you were talking. I would have to add to that list. Vermont has a food insufficiency problem. 1 out of every 4 Vermonters deal with food insufficiency in an agricultural state.
Right.
What is that about?
Yeah.
I mean, it's every place you turn around, there's something.
Well, I would say, I don't know, I'm very concerned about the fentanyl crisis.
For sure.
Because it is real.
Yep.
And I don't know, whatever it is, 350, 400,000 people in America died since the Biden administration took over. What's going on there is China is pumping the ingredients for fentanyl into Mexico. They've set up places to make it in Mexico. They're pumping it in through our wide open southern border. So that's the biggest issue with me on the border is the fentanyl coming in and killing, we're destroying cities in Vermont and towns and families. And what's really disturbing is not much is being done about that. So I'm looking to take some serious action against China. I think they would, get them to stop.
Right.
With some sanctions, like we're not buying this, and these things from you anymore. Period. Until it stops.
Right.
That's
That would be
one thing.
great.
So, even the primary, I went to 17 different places on primary day, and I would say maybe 3 blocks from the city hall, the library in Burlington.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I asked.
I don't go there anymore.
Well, I asked the police officer. I said, "What the heck is going on here?" He's like, "Well, we moved them away from City Hall, and they came over here because this one block, there was a policeman at this end, a policeman at that end, and in the middle, it was actually scary.
Yeah, tents and stuff, or just people.
People screaming, yelling, completely.
Well, that brings up mental health issues, doesn't it?
Well, I
mean,
think
a lot of those people are.
I think there was drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you didn't feel safe even walking in
Right.
to vote.
Right.
So,
I have friends that live in Burlington, and they pick their time and place to go because they just won't go walk downtown at night anymore.
well, and it's other cities too.
Yeah.
I mean, Rutland's in trouble, Springfield's got issues, St. Albans got some issues, Burlington, Brattleboro, Bennington, kind of the major places. It's the drugs and the crime that are also coming in through the border. So, and there's another whole piece to it, the whole progressive prosecutor movement. So
the court system? Oh, my
catch and
God.
release.
Yep. What is that about? Why?
That's
I don't
not working at
understand.
all.
But what were they hoping to accomplish? You're not fixing these individuals. You're not providing them help.
Right. Well, we need to, people, kind of going over into to guns too. But the United States, like for instance, mental health capacity over 50 years has just. So where there were X number of beds, for mental health
for sure
hospitals, years
20
ago.
times more.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
right off,
Right.
dropped off to very low numbers. So I think we need to increase that. Start supporting our law enforcement community. Kind of get rid of that whole progressive prosecutor catch and release idea, which is bad. It's just not working, and it literally, pretty much every city type place in Vermont is in trouble with it right now.
Well, and even the law enforcement, they're like, why bother? If I pick this guy up today, and I put myself at risk and I bring him in, I turn around, tomorrow he's out. And so what's the point? It's really sad. Do you know, I'm involved with Campaign for Vermont. I don't know if you get their newsletter and stuff. It's a sort of, I love the word think tank, huh? But anyway, it's a political entity, and we put out we did a survey 2 years ago, and for the first time ever, that in in the top 5 concerns were, cost of living, education, housing, and crime. First time ever, crime was in the top 5 in Vermont, ever.
Yeah.
We were the safest state in the nation. Not anymore. People are afraid.
No, it's again led to this state.
Yeah.
I hope Vermonters realize it. It's not. Frankly, I don't meet any Vermonters that are like, things are so much better now. They're not.
No, they're not.
So,
Right.
and we all love Vermont, and it's just we're being led in a bad direction. So, let's get some balance back in our state and federal, congressional delegation that's going to represent all Vermonters, and let's get back to the Constitution.
Oh, that old Constitution.
Oh, I think
So I had mentioned,
this
you
from
have one of those books? Oh, I love them.
I got this one from Senator Leahy.
Oh, there you go.
I carried one around for 20 years.
Nice.
Had it, so.
I saw him not that long ago, about a year ago. He was in a local place, and everybody was saying hi. It was nice.
I saw him at end of middle of 20, October 22. They had the Women's Economic Forum.
Oh, yes, right at the college.
And I could tell you a bad story about that. Maybe I won't. But the nice part was he invited me up on the stage.
Oh, nice.
He shook my hand and said, I know who you are. Good luck. I was like, it was really nice of him. And he got up there, and Secretary Yellen was going to
Janet?
be
Yes,
the speaker.
Janet. Yeah.
And so Senator Leahy got up there, and he's like, we have Secretary Yellen. She's the first woman Secretary of the Treasury. And of course, if you know, I served with the first Secretary of the Treasury, which was
Did he really?
Hamilton.
Wow.
Yes.
Good grief.
Yeah, it was funny.
Amazing. I do. He and Jeffords, and of course he's since passed away, but as much as I disagree with them politically, I've always admired them because they have spent their lifetime doing stuff for Vermont. And Leahy used to bring home a lot of goodies for Vermont.
Oh,
he was amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to take us a long time for anybody, Peter or anybody or Sanders, to get to that level.
Well, them, yeah.
I don't know if that's right or wrong that he brings home goodies because they called the pork.
No, that's okay.
Pork,
but what
us.
I would say is, I don't think. I would say particularly if things go a certain way in these upcoming elections. If Vermont has a socialist and two far left folks in the Congress, Vermont's not going to do well. But I would say, I met some members of the Guard, for instance, and they were all very appreciative of Senator Leahy. Did a lot of things for them.
Yeah, for sure. He's a very good guy. A personally good guy. But anyway, so you mentioned, and Bernie has mentioned this about democracy. It's kind of a heavy topic, but when you step back, and you're looking at the United States being a democratic republic, how do you look at where we are in what we hold dear?
Well, we're a constitutional republic, and we're also a democracy. I guess we'll get it right out there. Going back to January 6th, I spoke. I was asked about that quite a bit. Running at 22.
Right.
And I've said many, many times, so folks that broke the law need to be held accountable.
I agree with
and,
you.
That's pretty straightforward.
Right.
So, other side, another piece of that is that we have this thing called the Constitution.
Right.
We have the First Amendment, the right to peaceably assemble and petition the government. So, I don't. We can't. I don't want to take that away at all, ever. I mean, this isn't very relative, but I mean, I saw Senator Warren yelling out in front of the Supreme Court
Right.
back in '22. I'm like, well, okay, no, she doesn't need to be arrested,
Right.
but she's speaking her mind.
Right.
Fine. What happened that day was bad.
Yep.
But I don't think that some guy with horns and a face paint and a bear vest
Right. Who cares?
is really a threat to democracy. One of the things I talk about for me, I took an oath, support and defend the Constitution, bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I took that 40 years ago. It has no duration. U.S. Senator takes the exact same one that a
Right.
commissioned officer takes in the Army. So I will support the Constitution. I don't think there is a threat to democracy right now. I think, one thing I want every Vermonter to do and every American that's eligible is to vote. Let your voice be heard objectively, like I talked about. I don't think we're better off right now than we were in 2019, for instance, and I think we've been led to a bad place. So
Yeah. I just get worried about the younger people who we keep talking about, this is how it should be. They don't have any point of reference about what we're talking about. Like taking down statutes and doing those kind of fundamental things. I'm a big Gettysburg person.
Right.
Everybody that knows me knows we go down to
Nice.
Gettysburg, camp there, and we don't miss anything in Gettysburg. And
the high water mark.
no,
Vermont.
it was. We just participate in everything we can down there. But anyway, if I said to my husband, if they touch one statute down there, I'm getting in my car and I'm going down. Nobody can stop me.
Yeah, I didn't
and
like.
What are we doing?
Yeah, they took some statues out of Arlington,
Right.
which I think was wrong.
Yep.
And a lot of that bothered me a whole lot.
It's our history. They say you learn from it. You may disagree with it,
Right.
but you need to know what happened
Yeah.
and learn from it. Yeah. It's a very sad. So when you look at what's happening in the legislature in Washington now, how do you think they don't seem to be working together as well as they used to in the old days?
No, like I said, I was born in Boston, so I mean, Tip O'Neill, I don't know.
Oh my God! I actually met him so many times. I won't tell you where.
And that's what, I even talked about this the other day. There has to be some
O'Neill.
compromise.
Yeah.
I mean, I even said it. I was like, look, I'm not coming off this.
Yeah, right.
But there has to be compromise. I realize that, and that's one of the reasons. My opponent talks about. I mean, he's basically going for like the grand slam home run of
Right.
100%, 100%, 100%. It's not happening.
No, right.
And we say it's a solution. It's not a solution. It's a false promise.
Right.
Over and over and over.
Right.
30, 40 years now. I hope Vermonters see that. But I was going to say something else about the democracy piece, but it'll come to me.
Well, I hope we hang on because we have something so special in this country,
Oh, yeah.
which because you've certainly served our country and tried to maintain what we have and make it stronger. And I think the world is looking at us a little different when the president goes up and says, stop. Oh, okay.
Well,
We'll just do that.
yeah, so this past State of the Union.
Yep, right.
It bothered me, and I'll talk more about this. I know it's controversial, the whole thing, but you had the Supreme Court justices there in the front row, and
Right,
the President of the United States berating them during the State of the Union,
I
saying
agree.
how I'm going to overturn something that you did. Folks,
No, not allowed.
folks, that's a threat to democracy.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
it's wrong. So I didn't like that, and I'll just say it. The Supreme Court made a decision and put something down to the states. We're talking about abortion.
About abortion, right.
And that's by our Constitution, I think that is where it should be. And so, people ask me all the time. We all have our beliefs.
Right.
I have my beliefs. You have yours. I know it's controversial, but
Right.
I think that's the right answer according to our supreme law. Push it to the states.
Yep.
So I tell people, and this is the truth. If I'm a U.S. senator, I think I can be and will be. I'm not supporting either way, pro or con, because it belongs at the state. It should be a state issue.
And I don't know and they were all talking about that Trump made them do it. Trump has no influence, or shouldn't have any influence, on the Supreme Court at all. It's separate. And so they made that decision based on what we do with health care and what we believe health care should be handled, and that's by the states, correct?
Well, right. Well, you're right. So the Supreme Court. Going back, the Supreme Court never should have made that decision in the first place.
Oh, okay.
Back in
Roe versus
73.
Wade, right?
So it should be a state issue. That's where it is. And the other party there keeps talking about the Republicans did this, Republicans did that, Republicans took away, someone's right. That's not true at all.
No.
The Supreme Court made a decision per the Constitution. It's a state issue. Difference, and really, that really highlights one of the major differences between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party.
Right.
I mean, the Democrat Party, now more than ever, I think, is just about more and more control, administrative state, and piling on, big government, looking for that cookie cutter, forcing states what to do. Republican Party, less government, let states decide. That's the intent of our Constitution.
And the way it is structured, the president, no matter who he or she is, should have nothing to do with the Supreme Court. And I would suggest that some of like the Democrats, if Trump was actually trying to influence, I'm sure some of those Democratic Supreme Court justices would say something pretty loud and pretty in your face, right? Like back off.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be straight up here, I mean, the president gets to nominate Supreme Court justices, but they go through a pretty grueling.
For sure.
I remember Clarence Thomas.
Oh, yes, right.
I mean, I listened to that for 8 hours or whatever it was. So they go through that process. I talked about, I'll say it again. I talked back in 22, Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yep, right.
I was not in favor of her support. I would not have supported her because I looked at her record on some pretty serious issues, and I said no. I don't think she's the right person.
Right.
But for me, it's character, qualifications, and character, and I just didn't see the right mix there to be.
And I don't know what we're going to benefit, obviously, to extend and make the Supreme Court bigger. They just want to do that now to switch the numbers. But.
Well, yeah. So, these, and my opponent does the same thing. He throws out these ideas that are not going anywhere.
Right.
Now they may sound okay, for somebody to pay all your medical bills.
Right.
Oh, that sounds great.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Where do I sign up? But that's not reality, and they're restructuring the court. And some other, different things like that would require a constitutional amendment.
Right.
And so, I mean, me for one, people ask me about term limits. I'm actually in favor of term limits.
Oh, yes.
But the thing is,
and here in Vermont too, may I add?
Well, yeah. But behind that, we have the ability with our vote. And so I hope folks, take it very seriously, think about Vermont's future, where we are now, and vote objectively, not, party line,
right.
not because your neighbor told you, to vote this way. So folks let their own voice be heard.
Right. They just need to do the research. And these days, with Zoom being what it is, it's out there. If you want to hear about debates, they usually have them on Zoom. There's a lot of ways to get informed.
Yes.
Just because somebody shows up at your potluck and shakes hands and is nice doesn't mean they vote like you might vote. So.
Right. Well, that's one of the nice things about Vermont. I get out and about, and I just meet people, all the time. So, that's really the best way to do it.
We have exactly 3 minutes and 48 seconds, and I was wondering, Is there anything that you would like to wrap up the show with, something we haven't covered, or tell people how to reach you?
Well-
And signs, and I'm sure if
Sure.
anybody wants to donate, you wouldn't say no.
Oh, no. So my website is deploymalloy.com.
I love that.
So www.deploymalloy.com, all one word. If you can look on that, I, of course, could use support of any kind, but and there's also, you can go in and volunteer, and we'll get you signs if you would like to just
Great.
sign there.
Here it is, very nice.
We have those, and other ways to volunteer, door knockers, door to door, all sorts of, a lot of different ways. So we could, we'll take any help we can. I did want to say thank you to my team. Great, dedicated, kind of an amazing team. 22, I had about 200 folks working
Wow.
for me. We're going to beat that this time.
great.
And it's very exciting. So we're excited. I think, I mentioned I got a 15-year-old. I don't like the future I see right now for him or any of my 4 children. And I want to try to, actually, like I've done over 40 years, actually produce results for Vermont and America for a better future. We've been led to a bad spot in terms of 2 wars, inflation. We're kind of teetering on the chance of a recession right now, and part of that is all the debt. The government has accumulated all this debt, and they haven't offloaded it at the Federal Reserve. So we're in a. You heard about the stock market.
Oh yes, we've been watching that.
There's some reasons behind that, and it's we're kind of teetering now if we're going to go into a recession. But the inflation's still here. I mean, like I said, I go grocery shopping, and then I think the balance piece that I've talked about, like with our supermajority here and in Washington, things like the clean heat standard. Vermont doesn't. I'm all in favor of technology. I work in the technology field. Research and innovation technology, for the government, the military. So I'm all in favor of that, but there's way too much industrial policy. So there's way too much government pushing an agenda on industry. That's never worked. That model does not work. The industry will and the open market will bring forth solutions, much like a cell phone. I don't remember getting a $7,500 check because I bought a cell phone. I mean, do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
So
Yep. I know they gave them out one time, but I have another story about that, but I'll save that for another show. So, Gerald, I really wish you a lot of luck.
Well, thank you.
Gerald Malloy is my guest. He's a Republican running for the U.S. Senate against Senator Sanders. Well, not against. You're running for the job. I like that better. But we'd love to see you in a debate around this state. I will be there.
Yes, thank you, Pat, and thank you for all your service to Vermont, and thanks for having me on. It's been really nice.
No, it's great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I've heard a lot about you. Thank you all for tuning in. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites.